So first, we are going to discuss Russia's war against Ukraine. What more can we do? We see that Russia does not want peace, although there are a lot of diplomatic efforts made to bring Zelensky and Russia to the table. Then, in relation to that, because it always comes up, we are going to have a deep dive into frozen assets issue. There are pros and cons. There are some sensitivities regarding this, but we really have to have argumented debate about this. What are the risks? Because we can't possibly imagine, we have to have an exit strategy. We can't possibly imagine that, if this there is ceasefire or a peace deal, that these assets are given back to Russia if they haven't paid for the reparations.
This is my video update on this Saturday afternoon, August the 30th. Coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the meeting between Macron and Merz, the German-French meeting that takes place twice a year. This is the 25th meeting, I believe, between Germany and France. And it usually alternates between which country will host the other. So this year, or at least this time around, France hosted Germany. So Merz was in France, and Macron and his wife Brigitte, they wined and dined Merz, showed him around the area where this meeting was taking place. They had a romantic dinner. Macron and Merz had a romantic candlelight dinner. At least that's how it looks from the promotional videos. And then they discussed geopolitics, because they're not so concerned about what's going on in their countries. France is broke, bankrupt, about to undergo a no confidence vote, which could collapse the government and maybe even collapse the system. Germany is deindustrialized, trying to remilitarize. Also broke, Germany, not doing so well, but not in the terrible state that France and the UK are in. But it's getting there. Germany is getting there. They had the unemployment figures come out yesterday, and it's looking pretty bad for BlackRock, Merz. So two very, very unpopular leaders, two leaders that are failing their country and their people. They decided to meet, and the topic that they discussed, the top topic on the agenda, was, you guessed it, Project Ukraine, or Russia, depends how you want to look at it. Russia. It's all about Russia, really. The obsession with Russia. And so they talked about security guarantees. They talked about secondary sanctions. They're all for secondary sanctions. In other words, sanctioning countries that trade with Russia. China and India is what they're talking about when they say secondary sanctions. Macron, he said that if there is no meeting between Zelensky and Putin, no bilateral meeting between the two, then he is saying that Trump got played by Putin. So this is Macron trying to bait Trump into taking some hard action against Russia by playing into Trump's ego. Very, very manipulative, the flip-flopper little Napoleon Macron. Merz, he said that Germany is in a state of conflict with Russia. They're not in a conflict with Russia. They're in a state of conflict with Russia. So interesting choice of words from Merz. And then Merz, off the topic of Project Ukraine, He discussed a bit about trade with the United States. He said that that Europe, the EU, they had to make a deal with the United States, the EU-US trade deal, and he pretty much admitted that it was a bad deal, but he passed it off as if this had to be done. The EU had no choice. That's how Merz rationalized the horrendous EU-US trade deal. And then Merz talked about the digital taxation, the digital tax. And Merz said that that Europe, the EU, will in no way bow down to Trump and get rid of the digital tax. We will not accept if anyone anywhere tries to pressure us, Merz said as he rejected Trump's push for a digital tax, because Trump is saying that any countries or group of countries that decide to tax American firms, specifically American tech firms, they will face additional tariffs. That's Trump's warning. And the EU, they have this digital taxation, and Trump wants the EU to remove this digital taxation. And Merz is telling Trump to bugger off. That is what he is telling Trump. Man, Merz, I hope Trump did not listen to your speech, did not listen to your statement. He's going to be very upset with you. But that was Merz playing it tough. He actually said he spoke to Trump and he told Trump, look, as far as digital taxation goes, no one's going to tell us who we can tax and who we cannot tax. He said that the European Union is sovereign. I think he actually used those words. The EU is sovereign. Who's the US to tell us who we can tax and who we cannot tax, even if they do threaten us with additional tariffs? Yeah, Merz is going to walk that one back, no doubt about it. He tried to talk tough. He tried to play it tough. One phone call from Trump to Merz, and that digital taxation is going to be removed. You better believe it. What did Macron say? The next few days will be decisive, marking the end of the period we set ourselves with President Trump and President Zelensky to achieve the first meetings, and we will continue to exert pressure for further sanctions. They're happy that the meeting is not happening. Not that the meeting was ever going to happen, or at least not under the conditions that the collective West placed on it. The Russian side has said they're always open to meeting, even with Zelensky. If he's positioned as the chief negotiator, they have no problem meeting with Zelensky, as long as the meeting is meant to accomplish something, is there to accomplish some sort of signature or some sort of resolution. The Russians just don't want to meet with Zelensky just to meet with Zelensky and to discuss territory and ceasefire and freezes and stuff like that, which is exactly what the Europeans and what Zelensky want. They want Zelensky to meet with Putin so that they can sit down and they can talk about territory and freezes, which is something that the Russians have said no to. This should be done at a technical lower level. Anyway, that is the Macron-Merz meeting, causing all kinds of trouble, those two, when they should really be at home focusing on their own countries. But nope, they decided to hug it out, have a meetup, and discuss Project Ukraine and Russia. So France, Germany, and the UK, the E3, as they are known in the context of the JCPOA, they have decided to reimpose the UN sanctions on Iran. So the sanctions on Iran will snap back because the UK, Germany, and France, they have decided that now is the time to say that Iran is not complying with the terms of the JCPOA, even though the United States, they left the JCPOA, even though Iran was observing the terms of the JCPOA when it was in force. The United States under Trump, they left the JCPOA. Iran continued to abide by the JCPOA, and then you had all kinds of aggressive actions against Iran. specifically from the United States and Israel, and the JCPOA pretty much fell apart. But the important part of the JCPOA was the condition that was in place, which said that if the UK, France, and Germany decided to reimpose sanctions, decided to say that Iran was not in compliance, then they could snap back the UN sanctions on Iran. So that term was still in place, and the E3 countries decided to exercise the term, and they are now saying that it is time for the UN to reimpose sanctions on Iran. Breaking: the European powers have triggered snapback sanctions against Iran. The mechanism is part of the nuclear deal. If triggered, all UN sanctions will be imposed on Iran. Iran could retaliate by leaving the NPT, the nuclear treaty, or expelling the ambassadors of France, the UK, and Germany. China and Russia have already declared that they will not accept these politicized UN sanctions against Iran. Yeah, so China and Russia are very upset with this development. They have issued statements. At least Russia has issued a statement slamming the E3's attempt to reinstate UN sanctions on Iran. According to the Russian Foreign Ministry, such actions by the European parties to the JCPOA are nothing but a brazen attempt to manipulate the provisions of UN Security Council Resolution 2231. The reason they are doing this, the E3, is because they are preparing the way for the next round of the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran. They're preparing for round two. So the Trump administration, what they can then say in a week or two, they can, or a month or two, they can come out and they can say the E3, the European countries, they've decided that Iran is not compliant with the terms of the JCPOA. Therefore, we're going to have to take aggressive action against Iran. So now they can use that excuse, very similar to what the IAEA did when the Iranian foreign minister was supposed to meet with Witkoff on a Sunday or Monday. He was supposed to meet with Witkoff, and they were going to have their 7th meeting, technical meetings, as they were negotiating some sort of an exit out of this impasse and trying to avert a conflict. And then on Thursday, the IAEA intervened. It stepped in and it said that Iran is not compliant and it's enriching uranium. And then on that Friday, Israel, with the United States, they attacked Iran and the 12-day war began. So this is very similar to what the IAEA did when they stepped in to sabotage the up-and-coming talks between Araghchi and Witkoff. That's what we're seeing here. And you can see that Netanyahu, he's on a lot of podcasts in the United States. He's appearing on a lot of very friendly podcasts, friendly to Netanyahu podcasts, where he is talking about how Iran is going to acquire ballistic missiles, ballistic nuclear missiles that can reach the United States of America. And so we have to stop this. So you can see that they are starting to prepare the ground for round two of a conflict with Iran. Unfortunately, this is where things are heading towards. So the defense ministers of Europe, I believe they met in Copenhagen, along with the foreign ministers, with Kaja Kallas heading up this meeting of ministers. And yeah, Kaja Kallas, stunning and brave, headed up the meeting. Should be my clown world. Anything with Kaja Kallas should automatically be labeled a clown world. Anyway, they had this meeting, and they are now discussing training Ukrainian troops after a ceasefire. They're still talking about a ceasefire taking place. I mean, the Europeans believe that there's going to be a ceasefire, a freeze in the conflict. So they keep on talking about a freeze, a ceasefire being negotiated, and they say once a ceasefire is negotiated, then the European Union is possibly going to take up the role of not only putting boots on the ground, but also of training Ukrainian troops. Kaja Kallas, in a statement, she said that the EU has already trained over 80,000 Ukrainian soldiers, so why not train more? If there is a ceasefire, they're going to train more troops, more Ukrainian troops. So that's what Kaya Kallas said. A lot of desertions, though. A lot of desertions in the Ukraine military. And Zelensky did an interesting thing. He opened the borders for 18-year-olds, I believe from 18 to 22-year-olds, or maybe 18 to 23-year-olds. They're no longer locked into Ukraine. They're no longer restricted from leaving Ukraine. So the borders opened, and man, did a lot of young men make a run to the border. Yeah, they made their way to the border in order to get out of Ukraine. A lot of people are wondering, why did the Zelensky government make this decision? It seems very out of whack for the Zelensky regime, because they were holding these young men in Ukraine. They were prohibiting them from leaving. And all of a sudden, they've decided to open up the borders and allow them to leave the country if they want. The reason I think they did this is just my opinion. I think that the Zelensky regime did this in order to remove the pressure that they were getting from the collective West and from a lot of the Banderites. I think the Zelensky regime was getting a lot of pressure from the Banderites, a lot of pressure from neocons and the Europeans and NATO to grab the 18 to 22, 23-year-olds and send them to the front line. And Zelensky knew that once he did this, he was in big trouble. He knew that if he did this, then the people in Ukraine might actually overthrow him. I mean, this would anger the Ukrainian public to a level where Zelensky's position may have actually been in jeopardy. So I think he did this in order to preserve his position. Even though those young men are now leaving, a lot of them are leaving the country, I think he did this in order to preserve his position as president, knowing that if those men were prohibited from leaving the country, eventually he would be forced to, he would have to send them to the front lines. And once he sent them to the front lines, then you could really have a grassroots, from a bottom-up type of regime change. Like the people would really rise up and remove Zelensky. That was possible, and so that's why I think he did it. But that's just my opinion on it. Anyway, Trump has sold $825 million in weapons to Project Ukraine, mostly long-range missiles. And the Trump White House says that these long-range missiles are going to go to Ukraine in order to defend against the hundreds of Russian drones. But the U.S. ambassador to NATO, what's his name, Whitaker, he was speaking to, I think it was Fox News, and he let it slip that the U.S. is actually working with Ukraine so that long-range missiles that the U.S. provides to Ukraine can be used by the Trump administration in order to hit pre-2014 Russia. And the thinking there is, once again, if you do enough damage to Russia, to the Russian Federation, if you hit at their energy infrastructure, if you manage to successfully target inside of Russia, even reaching, say, Moscow or St. Petersburg or whatever with long-range missiles, then you can force Putin to the negotiating table. This is the logic that they had actually under Biden. So I mean, this thinking is not going away even under the Trump administration. If we can successfully hit Russia with our long-range missiles, with all of the targeting and satellite of the United States, if we can attack Russia, successfully hit the Russian Federation, then we will force Putin to the negotiating table.
Well, quite frankly, it's all different. First of all, those weapons, the U.S. weapons that are now being used on the front lines of the war in Ukraine are not being paid for by the U.S. taxpayers. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we are talking with the Russians. That was not happening during the Biden administration. And finally, we're giving some deeper strike capabilities, and most likely the Ukrainians are going to use them. And that obviously is much different than what Joe Biden did. So
it looks like we're back to that. But anyway, 825 million, and the White House is saying that these weapons were sold to Ukraine Interesting choice of words. Not given, because Biden was giving the weapons to Ukraine. The Trump White House is selling the weapons to Ukraine. Trump unveils another $825 million arms sale to Ukraine while talking peace. Crucially, the package will include long-range missiles and supporting equipment, ostensibly to strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities, though the Kremlin is going to interpret this as another act of U.S. escalation, giving the long-range capabilities. Yeah, they're giving the long-range missiles. As Whitaker told Fox, they're giving the long-range missiles so they can strike at Russia. That's why they're giving the long-range missiles. So Putin is on his way to China. This is going to be his longest trip in a long time. He's going to be in China for 4 days. He is going to attend the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, as will many world leaders, including Modi. Erdogan also confirmed that he will be at the SCO as well. And Putin was interviewed by, I believe, by a Chinese media outlet. And he had some very interesting things to say, especially about Russia and China and the cooperation between the two countries. Putin called Xi Jinping a friend in the interview. And he said that Russia and China is united in our vision. They have a united vision, those two. Putin also said that it's time to stop weaponizing the financial system. The use of the financial sector for neo-colonial purposes must be stopped. So I think we're getting a hint as to what's going to be happening in China. This is going to be a big meeting, very big meeting, very important meeting for the multipolar world. And I think we're going to get a lot of progress during these next 4 days being made to further move away from Western institutions and further protect the global majority from Western sanctions and weaponization of the US dollar and stuff like that. This is going to be a very big, very important meeting between Putin, Xi, Modi, and other world leaders attending the SCO, and then you have the World War II ceremony as well, right after, of which you're going to have Kim Jong-un in attendance. So what else? What else should we talk about? A court ruled in the United States that Trump's tariffs are illegal. A U.S. appeals court, 7-4 split, has ruled that most of President Trump's tariffs are unlawful, dealing a major blow to his trade agenda. The tariffs will remain in effect until October 14th. And I believe the Trump White House is going to appeal this decision. Trump was very, very angry with this decision. He posted on Truth Social, a long post on Truth Social, where he basically said that if the tariffs are removed, it's going to do a lot of damage to the U.S. economy. And Trump is going to fight this decision from the court. He also said that all tariffs are still in effect. Today, a highly partisan appeals court incorrectly said that our tariffs should be removed, but they know the United States of America will win in the end. And then he went on to talk more about the damage that removing the tariffs will cause. Robert Barnes talked about this in a live stream that we recorded on the Duran about 3 weeks ago. He said one of the reasons that Trump is pushing the tariffs in connection with U.S. national security and demonizing Russia and China, one of the reasons he's doing it is because he has these court cases and he needs to show that the tariffs are a national security issue, because there's a good chance that the courts may say they're illegal. So Trump has to show that this is a matter of U.S. national security. And that's the reason that he continues to demonize Russia and China and India in connection with the tariffs. And it looks like Robert Barnes was 100% correct. The court ruled, they said it's illegal, and now Trump is going to have to prove the case that these tariffs are a national security issue for the United States of America. Well played, Robert Barnes. He called this one. So Trump removed the Secret Service detail for Kamala Harris, right when she's about to start her book tour. Man, I wish I had tickets to her book tour. Doesn't matter. I'll purchase the book, but it would have been much better if I could have actually attended one of her book tour events and listened to her in person and maybe even get a signature. Anyway, no problem. I'll just have to buy the book and enjoy it in my spare time. Anyway, Trump removed the Secret Service detail for Kamala Harris. It was an extended Secret Service detail. From what I understand, by law, vice presidents get 6 months of protection, but Biden extended it. So it ran out on July 21st, and then the Biden White House extended the Secret Service detail. And Trump has now revoked the Secret Service detail. All right, let's do a clown world and we can wrap up this video. And Politico, they had an article with the title, Germany's army is rebuilding. What could go wrong? As Putin looms and Trump pulls back from NATO, Germany gears up to build the fourth largest army in the world. That is coming from Politico. That's right. What could go wrong? Germany is building the fourth largest army in the world. What could possibly go wrong? I don't know. I don't think anything's going to go wrong, will it? Germany building an army to fight a war against Russia? I don't know. What could go wrong, Politico? What could go wrong? Ah, man, amazing that so many countries are just allowing this to happen. Amazing that so many countries that suffered in World War II are allowing this to happen. Greece, we suffered tremendously in World War II at the hands of the Nazis. We really, really suffered in World War II, and the Greek government is just allowing Merz in Germany to just build this army. If I was the Prime Minister of Greece, I would be yelling and screaming. I would be going to events in Brussels, and I would be screaming, no freaking way are we going to allow Germany to build a military. Never going to happen on my watch. It's not going to happen. But I'm not Prime Minister of anything. So anyway, that's the video, everybody. Oh, God help us. All right, theduran.locals.com. We are on Rumble and Telegram and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.